Hello everyone, this is Dr. Rachita Misra speaking to you on your software engineering course. So today in this lesson, we will be going over the software configuration management process. This, as you know, is part of our project management and change management or software configuration management. The topics that we will cover are the objectives, the process steps, the identification, change control, version control, configuration auditing, and status reporting. So what is the primary objective of the SCM process? As we have seen in the previous lessons, we have discussed about the basic concepts and the repository, and now we are coming to the process. So why should we have, what is the objective of having the SCM process? Identify all items that needs to be under software configuration, collectively define the SCM repository objects. So because SCM will keep the repository of the objects which are identified separately as configurable items. This SCM process it needs to identify those items which will go under the software configuration. Manage their changes to one or more of these items and facilitate construction of different versions of the software application. Whenever there will be a release, we should be able to construct the versions, and we have to ensure that software quality is maintained when the configuration evolves over the time. So we have to keep track of the changes and see that the correct version is coming and the correct version is getting changed so that the software quality is not getting overridden, and also that there is no mix up in the software components. So that kind of assurance, that is one of the objective of the SCM, and also it will provide information on changes that have occurred. So basically all the changes that we are doing and all the issues that we had during the changes, that managing those issues properly is the primary objective of the SCM, and on top of it, it will also provide us the information. That means that it will give us a good audit trail as well as reporting. So we will soon see how this SCM process steps will follow these objectives. If these are the objectives, then how we can have the processes built around these objectives. Now, putting things in a slightly different perspective, a process that will satisfy the SCM objectives can be characterized by the ability to answer the following questions. So this is Pressman's way of putting it in his book. So what he has done is he has said that SCM objective can be characterized as to be able to answer the following questions. So if you are able to, the answer to all these questions are basically the SCM objectives. So how does a software team identify the discrete elements of a software configuration? So that is what we saw as one of our objective. And how does an organization manage the many existing versions of a program and its documentation in a manner that will enable change to be accommodated efficiently? So that is another thing, managing the change and keeping track of the so many objects. How does an organization control changes before and after the software is released to the control customer? That means when it is in development, that time also we have to control because there will be so many changes during the development, and after it is released, after the development is over, after that is released, then also there will be maintenance, so there will be changes. So how the organization does, so that itself will determine the SCM objective and subsequently its processes. Next, who has the responsibility for approving the change? So there has to be, because we said there has to be an approval process for releasing to the repository. So each time there is the responsibility is done, who will do this and who will rank the changes? Which release will go first? Which release will go next? So there, so there has to be a responsibility, and assigned, and there has to be an approving procedure. How we can ensure that changes have been made properly? What mechanism is used to appraise others of the changes that are made? So that means the kind of reporting facility that was there we talked of, that kind of question. If you are able to answer this question, then that the answer to the question automatically become the objectives or the characteristics of the SCM, for which we need to have the processes. So what are the SCM tasks? The SCM task can be viewed as concentric layers built one over the other around the configurable items. So if you keep all the configurable items, the objects, in a repository in the central part, then and if you create, and then you can create processes on top of that central layer, the sphere. Suppose you create a sphere which is your repository. What is there in the repository? It is your SCIs, all the objects of the configurable items. So then what you do, you create concentric circles over it. Each concentric circle will be one type of tasks that you are doing for the repository. So this repository, along with its tasks that are supported by tools, become your software configuration system. So let us describing from the inner to the outer, from the inner to the outer, that means from the repository size towards the outside. If you take over, then the base over the SCI is the identification of the objects. Then comes the change control, change of the objects, the control of that. Then the version control, because you have changed, so you have to do a versioning. So the control of the versioning, how the versioning will be controlled. Then you have the configuration auditing, and you have the status reporting. So these are the 5 different steps which are being done in the software configuration management system. The CSCI flow outward through these layers during their life cycle. So every object that is in the repository will go through these activities. It has to be identified to be in the repository. It has to go under change control. That means it has to come out and get into the development mode and bring it back again. When it brings back, it has to be version control. And for all these things, there has to be configuration auditing as well as status reporting. And it is ultimately become part of the configuration system of one or more versions of a software application system. So whatever you have identified as your configurable items, at some point of time, it will finally become the part of your repository, the configuration system. And ultimately a version of a software application system, because it has to be finally given to the user. So what is the identification task? In the identification task, we are separately recognizing each CSCI and organizing it in the SCM repository using an object-oriented approach. So first of all, we are identifying it, then we are separating it. That means we are giving an identity to it, unique identification to it. And then after giving that, we are organizing it in the SCM repository. And the SCM repository organization is an object-oriented approach. So what is that object-oriented approach? We have basic objects and we have aggregate objects. In the basic objects, it is a unit of information which is created by the team member, such as because every team member will not do the whole analysis. So it will be a part of the analysis specification. It will be a single design model, or maybe a part of a model, or a component, one source code of one component, some of the test suite, some of the test cases. So they are fractions of the complete thing, because a set of team members together will be doing an activity. So each team member will be producing only part of it. So these are the basic objects that the team members will be releasing to the repository. And so these have to be identified separately and as basic objects. And then these basic objects there should be a method of making a collection of these basic objects as aggregate objects, so that we can say that these elements together are a particular release or a particular increment. These things together are one version. So because unless we have this method of collecting and aggregating and giving a unique identity, we will not be able to say the release versions. And we have said that each object is identified separately. It will have some unique ID. Along with that unique ID, it will also have some distinct features which are identifying it separate from the others. So there will be a name that is unambiguous to all other objects. This should not be repeated. The name should be unique and unambiguous. Then there has to be a description that will contain the type, what type of object it is, a project identifier, from which project it came, and what is its change number or version information. Then there will be some list of resources needed by that project, and the object realization, that means what type it is, whether it is a document or it's a file or it is a model. So whenever you have an object, it will have some kind of distinctive features, or you can say some attributes that identify it uniquely apart from its ID. Then comes the second task, which is the change control task. Well, the change control is a procedural activity that ensures quality and consistency as changes are made to a configuration. So what happens? It is a procedure. It's a procedure. It's a control procedure. The change control task is a control procedure. A change request will be submitted to a configuration control authority, which is sometimes called as a change control board or CCB or configuration controller. So either you can have one person designated as a configuration controller, or you can have a board, that means a team of members who are team of senior people, who either this or this will be the authority to be able to provide the change control permission. So the change request from the individual who is doing the change, after he has completed the change request will be submitted to these authorities. Then this request will go for a evaluation. So there will be an evaluation committee which will evaluate it. What will be the criteria of evaluation? They have to see the technical merit. They have to see any side effect is there. What is the overall impact on other configuration items, objects which are already released, system functions, and what is the projected cost in terms of money, time, and resources, and a change report is issued. So whenever a change is there, so it will first get approved by the change control by this a method of due evaluation. Then a report will be created. Change report will be issued. Now that change report will be taken up by the CCB or the controller, and they will see the priority, status of the priority of other changes, and they will issue an engineering change order. That means an approval of the change request. Then ECO will describe the changes to be made, and constraints to be followed, and the criteria for review and audit. So once this is approved and this part is established, then what will happen? Then the change is approved. Now those items that will be required for the change can be obtained from the SCM repository. So what the software engineers will do, they will identify which are the objects which will go under change to satisfy this change order, and they will use the access control mechanism in the SCM system to take those to access those objects and modify that particular object. So as I was telling you earlier, they will make a copy of it and take it. And synchronization control helps to ensure that parallel changes are performed by more than two. So now once they have done it, then that is what we have said. To start working on a CSCI, an authorized software engineer has to check out the object from the repository to a personal area or a branch of the SCM repository to give access to the developer. So once the change request is passed and converted into a change order, that copy will be provided to the developer so that he can do the changes. And the access control and the synchronization control will help that parallel changes can be done, parallel increment can happen, and nothing will go wrong in the system. So this is about change control task, and as we have seen, it is a procedure to authorize the change and to be able to issue the right elements from the repository to the developers, and so that they will make the change and they will be able to release it. So we have completed the change control task. Now we will go to the version control task. What is version control task? A version control task is another set of procedures and tools for managing the creation and use of multiple occurrences of objects in the SCM repository. So now that was for change control with change management procedure. Now this is the versioning or the configuration management procedure. So because in the configuration repository, we have said for each object, we will keep multiple occurrences. The previous occurrences will also be kept. And the last one that will be released will be the baseline one. So this is this version control is a set of procedures and tools for managing the creation and use of multiple occurrences of objects in the SCM repository. So the version control will require certain capabilities. What is this? SCM repository that stores all relevant configuration objects. So there has to be a SCM repository. The version control cannot happen unless there is a SCM repository. A version management capability that keeps all versions of a configuration object or enables any version to be constructed using differences from the past versions. So if there is a new version that has been released, then it will create a new version. So version management capability, initially it will keep some version, initial version of all the configuration object, and whenever there is a change that has come which is different from the previous version, it will create a new version. So that is the version management capability. Then there has to be a make facility. What the make facility will do, it will try to build. It will enable the software engineer to collect all relevant configuration objects and construct a specific version of a software. So whenever there is a new change that has come, it is not a single component that will change, but multiple components will change. So different objects already in the configuration control will be subject to change. So there should be a facility which is called a make facility, where a collection of objects can be put under a single name or a single make or a single project name, and a specific version, once it is completed, a specific version can be made for that. Additional capability of issue tracking or bug tracking that enables the team to record and track the status of all outstanding issues associated with each configuration object. Also, the SCM repository maintains a change set. So it serves as collection of all changes made to a baseline configuration. So whenever there is a baseline, whatever are the subsequent changes or the previous changes, it will keep. It is used to create a specific version of the software by collecting the different objects, because the different objects have been taken by the developers to create the change. So when they bring it back, the repository also has to have this kind of capability. Otherwise, it will not match. It will not match with the other what we spoke here. Version control capability will not match the SCM repository capability. So it must match. The repository should be able to create a specific version, and it captures all changes to all the files in the configuration along with the reasons for change and details of who made the changes and when. If you keep this, then it will help in establishing the audit trails for the changes. Now we come to the next task, the next circle, the sphere around our concentric circles. It is configuration auditing tasks. Because you have already established the change control and now you have also established the version control. So now you can do the configuration auditing task. So what it does, it is a software quality assurance activity with the objective of ensuring that quality is maintained as changes are made. So what a software quality assurance person does for the project items, this configuration management is now doing that for the released items, for the change items. So what we say, configuration auditing is a software quality assurance activity with the objective of ensuring that quality is maintained when the changes are made. It complements the formal technical review and is conducted by the SQA group. And a configuration audit ensures that the correct CSCIs have been incorporated into a specific build. All documentation is up to date and consistent with the version that has been built. So it provides a auditing kind of facility which can be used by the software quality assurance people to do this kind of review whether the release have been correct, whether the version has been properly built, whether the documents are kept up to date and also consistent in the new version that is being built. It addresses the following type of questions. Has all the changes specified in the ECO, that is the engineering change order, has it been incorporated? And also, is there anything else that is incorporated? Only those changes should be incorporated. So it is like a necessary and the sufficient condition. So no extra should be done. So that is why, has any other modification also gone in? Was the formal technical review been conducted to assess the technical correctness and the report is prepared? So when the change order came, before it, whether there was a change request which is undergone the technical review and proper report is prepared. Has the software processes been followed and have software engineering standards been properly applied? Have the changes been highlighted? We have seen that if we have the repository, then it will automatically keep the entity relations and it will automatically ensure that some amount of discipline, engineering standards are used by everybody. So that is why it will check. The SQA will check while doing the configuration auditing, they will check whether it is actually applied or not. Has the changes been highlighted in and documented in the CSCI? So this is another thing that is normally a procedure. You have to do it. Whenever you have a configurable item and you are making a change, then you have to mention in the document somewhere highlighted that this document is undergoing the change, who is the author, when it was changed, and why it was changed. So do the attributes of the configuration object reflect these changes? Have the SCM procedures for noting the change, recording it, and reporting has been followed? So whether this software configuration procedures for all these kind of items has it been followed? And finally, have all the related SCSI, CSCI, that is computer software configuration items, been properly updated, whether when they have been taken into the repository, whether it is correctly updated or not. So these are the kind of questions. If you can create a checklist like this, questionnaire checklist, then you can say, yes, this has been done, this has been done, this has been done, this has been correctly noted, Like that you can see. So all this kind of QA kind of answers is being answered by this configuration auditing task. The final one, we come to the status reporting. In the status reporting, it is also called status accounting. It provides information about each change to those personnel in an organization who need to know it. So there are a lot of people who are interested to know the status of the changes. There could be managers, there could be users, there could be team leads, there could be software engineers who are working on it. So a report will be created, and that report can be circulated or shared, or maybe they can query it and they can get it. It provides information about what change happened, who did it, when it happened, and what else was affected by it. So this kind of information it will give. The configuration status report placed in an online database or on a website for software developers and maintainers to read, given to the management and practitioners to keep them appraised of important changes to the project of the configurable items. So the two ways it is distributed. One is common area where everybody can read it, and another is by giving to the specific practitioners and the management. The configuration status reporting happens at what time it happens, what is the frequency it will happen. Each time a configurable item is assigned new or updated information. Each time a change is approved by the CCB and an ECO is issued. And each time a configuration audit is conducted. So this is when it is assigned new, that means a configuration item is added, and each time the CCB approves a change and the ECO is issued, then we have to find out which are the components which are getting affected by this change. So therefore a status report will be issued, because there will be a change request. It will mention which objects are getting affected. So these objects have to move to the development area for satisfying this change, this ECO. So that is why a change status report has to come. And next, so it will tell you for all the objects which configuration it is, what was the last change, and when it had gone to the release. All those information will come in the status report. Then once it is done, each time the configuration audit will be conducted. So whenever the configuration audit will be conducted, it will see that the change release is correct or not. So that time also a configuration status report will be created. So we have come to the end of all the processes, and summarizing it, we have discussed all the processes: identification, change control, version control, configuration auditing, and status reporting. And we have said that they appear like concentric circles around the SCM repository, and every object goes through these processes throughout the development life cycles. So thank you all. We have completed the in the last 3 lessons, including this current lesson, we have completed the all the knowledge areas of software configuration management, which is part of your project management aspect in your software engineering course. So next lessons, we will take up some new area in the software engineering course. So thank you all for giving me a patient hearing.